Welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to go over all of the materials that I use when painting in plein air. The materials that I want to show you today range from my backpack that I lug things around in all day, all the way down to my tiniest brush. The way that you set up and transport your plein air materials can make or break your willingness to actually get out there and paint. I hope that with this video you're able to see how I pack around materials and utilize that to your advantage. Or disadvantage if you end up not liking how I do things. Anyways, before we get started, let's cue the intro. So to kick things off, let's start with what I carry everything around in. And that would be this backpack right here. This thing carries all of my painting supplies. It carries 4 different types of paints, as well as an urban sketching kit and my tripod, as well as an air tag for tracking and some extra materials just for fun. So let's get into this. To get things started, this is my Nike Utility 2.0 bag. This thing is a beast in carrying around all of my supplies that I need for plein air painting. This backpack has 3 front pockets, a side pocket for my tripod, another side stretchy pocket for my water bottle when I carry that around. On the back, it has this laptop pocket, which is padded on the inside to keep your laptop safe, and so that you don't feel your laptop when you're carrying this backpack around. It also has this small pocket up here I use sometimes. I can fit my phone in there, I can fit some other things in there, but it's kind of small, so I don't use it that often. This backpack also has a chest support in the front, so it makes it easier to carry around for long periods of time. And overall, this backpack is just amazing. So let's get to unpacking it. Let's get started on this front face of the backpack. What can I fit into this thing? Start with this top pocket. This right here is my urban sketching kit. It holds a lot of stuff, and we will get into that later. This pocket also holds my Apple AirTag, which is very, very useful in tracking this stuff. This backpack altogether probably has upwards of $1,000 of value within it. It gets pricey, so I always try and track it with this. This just gives me another level of security when taking this places. If we jump down to the bottom of the bag, this front pocket I don't actually really use, so I actually have more space than I need. So I'm going to close that one back up. And if we jump into this last pocket on the front, this is where I carry around all of my casein paints. So like I said before, I am able to carry around 4 different types of paints within this backpack, which is honestly kind of crazy. This side of my backpack holds my tripod in place. So I used to hold it in with these carabiners, and it would be on the front of the backpack, but it swung around too much when I was walking. It was a little uncomfortable. So instead, I took it out of that bag and put it in this side pocket, which it actually fits very perfectly. So that is what is in that side pocket. Now let's get into the bulk of this bag. So if I open up this big pocket, which is really nice because it flips out the whole front of the bag. You'll see what I'm saying in a second. It flips out like this. And this is where the majority of my materials live within this bag. So I got basic materials like these in the front of this bag. The really cool thing that I have is this facade box. It's very special to me. I've been using it for the past year now, and it is awesome. I got this last Christmas as a Christmas present, and it's honestly one of the best things I've ever gotten. This is my facade box. If we take this off, we will save this for later, but this is actually a really important feature of this box. Next, let's flip it open. So there is a latch on the front, and then there are these knobs on the side, and this is the box open. If I kind of push this back, it can kind of brace and hold this top section open. And yeah, this is basically like your easel and palette all in one box. This section right here is where you place your artwork. There are 2 knobs on the back of this you may have seen in just a few seconds ago. And if I loosen those, I'm able to move these up and down. Now I can fit any size artwork up to 17 inches within this section. That is extremely helpful. It gives you a wide range of sizes you can work with this facade box. But yeah, that is a major feature that I love about this facade box. The next thing about this facade box that is really cool is that it has layers to it. If I take this top layer off, and just slide right out, I can now hold all of my paints and my brushes within this next section of the box. Other than that, there's not much more to the exterior of this, so let's dive into actually what's inside the box. Here are all of the paints that I'm able to store within my Pashad box. You can see that these are all the same brand, and that's for a few reasons. I like to keep my paint colors very cohesive throughout different paint mediums, so I even have this set of colors in oils as well. Within this box specifically, I have a range of acrylic, gouache, and watercolor. The range of materials allows me to choose on the spot which kind of painting I want to get done that day. In this top section, with these included, I have acrylic paint. I don't normally paint full paintings in acrylic. I just don't like the paint. I think that watercolor and gouache are just way better options for me. I do utilize acrylic as the underpainting for most of my paintings. One thing you don't want to do when using acrylic as an underpainting is use too thick of a paint application, because then gouache and watercolor and casein can't really adhere to that surface as well. Casein can-ish, but gouache and watercolor will have a tough time adhering to that surface. If we move into the second layer, I have watercolor. It's the same exact colors as this set and this set. Like I said before, I'm very cohesive throughout all my paint mediums. It might be hard to tell the difference between the watercolor and the gouache. That is because they have the same exact size of tube. But the one thing you can do to really see the difference, at least with this brand in particular, is that watercolor has 2 bands of the color, whereas gouache only has the 1 band in the middle. Another cool thing you can do is actually use titanium white artist gouache or any other kind of white gouache and mix it with your watercolors, and then you have a full gouache set for just the size of a watercolor set. This could be a really good option for a very light packer. I myself just like to have all of the different options available to me without having any workarounds, and I'm able to fit them into my backpack pretty comfortably without any stress or overpacking. The last thing that fits into this layer is actually my brush pack, which I took out a little bit ago, but I have it stuck into an Anchor charging cable bag. It kind of works perfectly for these brushes, and we'll talk about these brushes in just a little bit, but this does live within this layer. This piece I mentioned earlier, and I kind of set it aside, but with the Pashad box now open, you can find its rightful home right here on the side. Now, what is this thing? Well, it is a brush holder. If I get my handy dandy rag out and I put it right here, I can now have a spot to hold all of my brushes on the side. This makes this box really ergonomic for actually painting. Without this section, where would I put my brushes? I don't want to put them in my paint, and I also don't want to hold them in my hand for the whole time I'm painting. So having this little extra part on the side is a lifesaver. The last thing I'm going to mention about the Pashad box is this layer, which is actually really important and honestly an awesome feature to this box. Technically, with this box, this is the palette, minus this paper. With this box, this wooden part becomes the palette. In my case, I like to add this palette paper on top because it is just easier to clean. You can see that there are stains throughout this part of the box, but those I don't really care about. What I would be worried about on this part of the box is these big globs of paint. Those would be hard to get off of this wooden part. This wood does have a slight finish to it, but it is not as easy to clean as just taking this palette paper off of here and throwing it away. This little bag holds 8 different types of brushes, as well as 2 pencils and a ruler. So let's unpack this thing. I lied. There are actually 10 brushes within this pack. I counted wrong. That's why I'm an art major, not a math major. Anyways, so I'm going to separate these by what types of brushes they are. So here is my flats pile, this is my rounds pile, and then this right here is my only other type of brush that I use, which is a filbert. Let's talk about these brushes. These brushes are really useful for covering larger areas of your painting. I have a big flat, slightly smaller flat, and then the list goes on and on. But the cool thing about these is that when you get them wet, they actually have a very sharp flat edge, so you can get really crisp, square-ish marks with these. All of my brushes are Princeton Velvet Touch. They do sound fancy, but I would actually say that these are a mid-range brush. There are brushes that you can get that are extremely expensive, but these are within that mid-range. I think for 10 brushes, it's a little over $100, which is putting you in a little bit of debt, but honestly, it is so worth it. The things that I like about these brushes are that they hold paint very well, and they have what I like to call a springiness to them. When I'm looking for a good brush, I don't tend to like really soft brushes that are kind of floppy, and I also don't like really bristly, hard brushes. I like a good mix in between that have a nice bounce to them, but can also be soft and applicable to the surface. Now, let's talk about these round brushes. These brushes are awesome for a little bit finer details, and like this big one, can be used to fill larger areas. The other interesting thing about round brushes is that you can actually go from thick marks to really thin marks because of this super fine point at the end. That is just a way that you can get a slight line variation or brush variation with only using one brush. To create 5 different effects, I no longer have to use 5 different brushes. I can just use this one. Same goes for these, just in a smaller scale. The last brush that is a part of my plein air setup is this filbert brush, and I mostly use it for foliage. This brush is especially good at that because of this rounded edge at the top. It sort of creates a more organic looking brush mark. Another thing you can use this for is filling larger areas, but I do tend to just use it for foliage and kind of cloud marks as well. The last materials that were in that small bag are these Faber-Castell water-soluble pencils. The awesome thing about these pencils is that when I do add water to them, they go away. If I were to use a normal pencil, those pencil marks could potentially show through onto my final painting, but I don't necessarily like that. By using these pencils, I am able to erase the marks that I used for sketching out with my paint layers that are laid on top. The last thing is this ruler. This little ruler is awesome for packing around if you ever need to measure something or draw straight lines. I am not going to lie, I don't use it that often, but it does fit into that little pouch, so whenever I do really need to use it, it is there. This is not a tool that I use all the time, but it's just a tool that is nice to have. This small pencil pouch actually holds quite a bit of material, so let's get into it. It has these button zippers on the side. You can unclip it and secure the zipper down that way. This side houses all of my jelly roll pens, as well as a few other things. Jelly roll pens are really good at being opaque on any surface. I have tested these on black paper and they actually turn up pretty opaque. This is pretty impressive because most pens will not show up on a black paper. Having that ability is honestly really cool. The 3 materials on the end are ways to make white marks on different types of paper. This first one is a jelly roll white pen. This is a white calligraphy pen. This pen is a little less opaque, so when you use this on a toned surface, it is going to show that surface just a little bit through it. That makes this white look a little more cloudy than a pure white like the jelly roll. This last material is honestly really interesting. It is a Sharpie peel off China marker, which this name doesn't really fit what you're looking at. To me, it looks like a wax pencil, but it is a Sharpie marker. It has a similar peel away, just like charcoal pencils, and it has a waxy kind of finish to it, so it feels almost like a crayon. If we flip this over, we can see the other side, which has another set of materials. This side houses my alcohol markers, my black Sharpies and calligraphy pens, and some pencil sketching tools, along with another jelly roll and an X-Acto knife. These are really cheap alcohol markers. I honestly prefer Copic markers just because they are refillable, but I left them at my parents' house, which is 4.5 hours away, so I've been using these. I have 2 very basic black Sharpies in here. One is a fine liner and one is a bullet nib. This last black marker in here is a calligraphy pen. In this close-up, you can see that this pen has a squared off edge, which honestly creates a very unique mark. Overall, this is one of my favorite materials I have in this side of the bag because it creates such a unique mark. Moving over here, I have a lead case, a micro eraser, and a super nice drafting pencil. This is my favorite mechanical pencil ever. It has a perfect weight to it and it feels so great in the hand. Overall, I don't think I've ever felt a better pencil than this. Next, I have an X-Acto knife. This is just a base material that you should always be carrying around as an artist. You never know when you're going to need to cut something or open something unexpectedly. These next materials were in that big pocket as well with the Pashad box, but I just didn't mention them. To get started, I have this tape. And this isn't any ordinary tape. This is actually artist tape. The difference between artist tape and say a blue masking tape or scotch tape is that this is archival. If you don't know what archival means, it means that over time, the adhesive from this tape will not yellow any paper that you put it on top of. So with any tape that you use, the adhesive ends up soaking into the paper. There is a chance that wherever that tape was, it would leave a yellow stain over time. This tape aims to eliminate that. So this tape is archival. That's what archival means. It will not ruin your artwork if you use it on top of it. All right, next. These are called bulldog clips. This is how I clip them together. I just go like this, and these are really useful for holding things together. So if I have my sketchbook, I'll normally clamp my sketchbook like this and clamp it closed so that no papers can get damaged when they are in my backpack or whenever I am moving them around. These are also great at holding down my surfaces to my pochade box so that they don't blow away in the wind, or, you know, if I bump the pochade box, they don't just fall off. These are really useful for that. This next material is just a mason jar and a rag. These are pretty self-explanatory, but I use this to hold all my water, and I use this rag to soak up my brushes and to like dry off my brushes. The last material that we have within this section is my palette paper. I kind of mentioned this with the palette part of the pochade box. I carry this whole pad around and it lasts me a really long time, and I just use a new sheet pretty much every time I paint so that I have a clean palette every time I start a new painting. Like I said before, this helps with cleaning. I don't have to necessarily scrub my palette out. Instead, I just throw this away in the trash. The last thing I want to show you guys that is a part of my plein air setup is this tripod, which is absolutely insane. I have a couple of mountain bikes. One is aluminum alloy and the other is carbon fiber, and this tripod feels just as durable as those. When you pick this up, you will notice a difference between a normal tripod and this tripod. Let's run through a few of its awesome features. So on the bottom, it has this clip to weigh it down. Or if you'd like, you could hang a trash bag from the bottom. And then if you are doing, say, oil painting where you need to throw away rags or a place to hold your rags, you can hang it off the bottom of that. Another cool thing is on the sides of this tripod leg, there are different notches. So if I pull out this little piece, I can now lock it into place on the next notch and it will lean towards that area. This helps a lot when leveling your tripod on an uneven surface. So say one leg has to be really short, you could lean it that way instead of having to fiddle with all of these adjustments down here. Speaking of down here, these adjustments are very common in all tripods, just a normal tripod leg extension. So another feature with this tripod is that you can loosen this knob in the middle and actually pull up this bar for more micro adjustments in height. In this area, there are these dials. So, and the way these dials work are if you are out painting and say a snowstorm or a heavy rain comes in, you can then tell exactly where your tripod was set up and the exact degree it was set at. This is a feature that I'm not gonna lie isn't that useful, but in the niche case or the very specific painter, I could see how it could be helpful. Going up to the very top of this, there are a few more knobs. This bigger knob is your main control center for up here. So if I loosen this ball head is going to be able to move in any direction that it needs. This is sometimes very useful, but also sometimes very annoying. The reason that I say it's annoying is that if your pochade box or whatever easel top you put onto this tripod is too heavy on one side, it will start to lean to that side. The way that I have found to work around this is to really tighten down this knob and to make sure your pochade box is balanced before you start painting. Other than that, there's not much you can mess up about that knob. If we turn this another 90 degrees, we can see that there is another knob on the back. This is what controls that dial that I was talking about earlier, where you can check your degree point. This knob right here controls this clamp, which has another piece that is actually attached to my pochade box. The piece that is on the pochade box slides into this groove and then you clamp it down like this, which keeps your pochade box on your tripod really tight and secure. The last thing I want to mention about this tripod is this level on top. This level is really helpful in determining how level your pochade box is. This is going to help with the balancing aspect I was talking about, and it's going to help you make sure your entire surface is level. I like my pochade box to be at a slight angle so that it faces slightly towards me. I just want to make sure that this bubble is going straight up, so that way I know it's level in this direction. If I turn it this way, it starts to lean to the side, which is not necessarily what I want. I know that I want it to be level horizontally, but I'm okay with a slight slant coming towards me. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked my plein air setup. If you have any suggestions on how to make it better, that would be greatly appreciated. I also hope that this helps you make your own plein air setup. As a reminder, when you set up your own plein air toolbox, remember to keep these things in mind. First, try and fit as much as you can into one backpack. If you have too many bags, it starts to make your whole setup a little too clunky. You have to remember to grab your paint bag, your brush bag, all of those things separated. It just makes it difficult to remember to grab everything. I also recommend investing in a durable bag. I invested in the Nike Utility 2.0 bag, and it has served me wonders over the past year that I've had it. The last thing that I will say is try to fit more than one material into your plein air practice. I know it can be intimidating to learn a bunch of different materials, but it will actually make you a better artist. Having a bunch of different materials in one bag is also going to allow you to choose exactly how you want your painting to look before you start it, without having to choose your material before you even go out and paint. Obviously, as this box and backpack change, I plan to also make updated video. If I have any major changes to my plein air setup, I will be making an updated video explaining the benefits and how it has changed how I make plein air art. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please make sure you hit the like button down below. It really helps out, and I will see you in the next video.